Hello, this is the Iliad Election Center, and today I just wanted to go over Wisconsin. So, as we know in 2020, Wisconsin is going to be one of the most competitive battleground states, and I wanted to go over three results that I think represent the possible outcomes for Wisconsin in 2020. And I'm going to go over what made those results happen, and I'm going to go over what each candidate needs to do to achieve those results. So, the three results that are in the purview of possibility are a narrow GOP victory by Donald Trump, like he did in 2016, a narrow Democratic victory, like now Democratic Governor Tony Evers achieved in the 2018 midterms against incumbent Scott Walker, or a blowout Democratic victory, like Jill Karofsky achieved, who was a progressive in a technically nonpartisan Supreme Court state Supreme Court race, but she was the Democrat affiliated candidate and she won in a blowout. So I'm going to analyze each three of these races and explain why they were, and explain what each candidate needs to do to achieve that. So when we look at the 2016 result, what we see is quite fascinating. So there's a couple of reasons why Donald Trump managed to pull off his 2016 upset in Wisconsin. Number one is southwestern Wisconsin. He these counties should not have gone GOP, right? You look at Grant County, Lafayette County, Crawford County. These counties should have been solidly Democrat, and that is a huge reason why Donald Trump won in 2016. Another reason, he won in Green Bay. You look at Green Bay, traditional white collar, not white collar, blue collar, uh, white working class, traditional Democratic stronghold, and he managed to flip that. He gained in western Wisconsin, and he held his own in the WOW. Now he lost. The WOW counties are these four or so counties. I'm not going to pronounce their names because I'm going to get them wrong. New Englander here, New England issues, but the Racine, Kenosha, these counties, even though he dropped in support generally compared to other Republican candidates, he still relatively held his own enough for the gains in the rest of these white working class, traditionally Democratic areas to pull him over the top. So that's what got him the victory. Now in 2018, when we look at it, the key difference between 2018 and 2016 that you can see visibly is almost every place looks the same except for two exceptions, right? Number one, southwestern Wisconsin, right? You look at southwestern Wisconsin, a lot more blue. Grant County, Crawford County, Richland County, right? These are all counties, especially in southwestern Wisconsin, that went back to the Democrats, and that's what pulled a narrow victory for Tony Evers because he wasn't having deficits. He wasn't running deficits in southwestern Wisconsin. He was running surpluses and to his vote total. Number two, you look at the wild counties, Kenosha, especially that the fact that he was able to pull off a 4 point victory in Kenosha. These are traditionally very conservative suburbs, right? He was able to narrow the margins in most of these Wow County suburbs, uh, and especially Kenosha, and that though those two factors brought him a narrow victory, right? Mind you, I say a narrow victory, not a huge victory. It was extremely small, 30,000 votes here and there, and it could have flipped. But one thing you will notice is in Waukesha County, which obviously I still don't know how to pronounce, but I'm so sorry to any Wisconsinites in the audience, but um, Scott Walker drastically outperformed Donald Trump, even when he lost the state. Even when Scott Walker lost the state, he won it by 66%. And you look at that same county in 2016, 60%. So one thing Donald Trump could look to as positive is potential is improving his margins in the biggest WOW county, which is Waukesha County, right? And he could look to gain milk votes out of that county because there's some vote surpluses left, and that's one positive piece of news. But I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Now the third thing we need to look at is 2020, right? Now June of 2020, I'm sorry, not June of 2020, earlier in the year, um, there was an interesting Supreme Court race that a lot of people thought would go down to the wire, and it ended up being a blowout for the progressive candidate. Now, there's multiple reasons it could be. It's an off election year. There was a Democratic primary on the same day. You know, there's multiple reasons. It could be that it could be a multitude of reasons. But the point being, there's a lot of distinction between this map, right, and this map, right? And I'm going to go over it. And the reason how a Democrat managed to win double digits in Wisconsin, right, which is something Obama managed to do, but Democrats haven't managed to do since. How a progressive managed to do it is actually a couple things. Tony Evers, one of the things that he did manage to do two things. Number one, if you look at the rest of the state, outside the South, outside the Southwest, and outside WOW, there really wasn't much change. His margins in a lot of these rural Republican counties stayed around the same to Hillary Clinton. He was able to win Ashland, Bayfield, and Douglas, which are traditionally Democratic counties. Although I will say that the third difference is that he improved on Hillary Clinton's margins in these three traditionally Democratic areas, but that was consistent with him winning the state, right? So it's nothing special there. It's just something Democrats have to do. They have to improve their margins in these three counties. But you'll notice in general, there's very little difference. Green Bay still went Republican. All these areas went Republican, right? They all went conservative, right? But you look at 2020 in the Supreme Court race, you'll notice a bunch of huge difference. Number one, the western part of the state. You look at Dunn County. You look at Pierce County, right? These counties surrounding Eau Claire, and they all go to the progressives, right? And that's like huge. That's what if Democrats want to pull off a solid victory, not a 1 or 2 point victory, but close to double digits. They need to do what Jill Karofsky did here and pull off these counties. They absolutely need to. Donald Trump cannot afford to lose these counties. Now it doesn't mean he will, but he cannot afford to lose these western Wisconsin counties. Number two, you look at Green Bay. Like I said, traditionally white working class counties going back to the progressives, right? And now once again, off year election, not off year election, but not a general election. So maybe things would change if it's a general election, but it went to the progressives regardless. And you look at 2016 and 2018, and neither of those things happened. The western part of the state stayed Republican, and Green Bay stayed Republican. Those two regions stayed Republican for both of those elections. So fundamentally, those are the things that caused a small Republican victory in Wisconsin, a small Democratic victory in Wisconsin, and a major Democratic victory in Wisconsin, or a major progressive victory in Wisconsin. All right, so fundamentally, what does Trump have to do, right? If you look at 2016, 2016's map he's effectively working on, right? He's trying to hold his margin in 2016. There's no realistic, feasible possibility. Maybe at best he improves his margin by 1 or 2, but there's no feasible possibility that, or any record in history that he manages to get a blowout victory in Wisconsin. Okay, that's out of the picture, right? So the question becomes, how does he hold his own in Wisconsin? Well, what he's got to do, he's got to hold his own in southwestern Wisconsin. He cannot cede southwestern Wisconsin to Joe Biden. He cannot cede these margins in western Wisconsin to Joe Biden. He cannot do it. He has to hold his own in these counties. Number two, WOW counties, he needs to milk votes out of here. He lost votes in WOW County, which are traditionally conservative counties. Those are the places conservatives milk votes in Wisconsin. He needs to increase his margins to offset any losses in the rest of the state. Number three, he needs to hold his own in the north, right? So the western counties, Green Bay, he needs to hold his own, right? Now, what's the path for Joe Biden, right? The biggest thing I would say would be Milwaukee, right? Milwaukee, in general, not just in Milwaukee, but across the Midwest, it was notorious. These urban areas, Detroit, Milwaukee, were notorious for low turnout, especially among African Americans, low African American turnout. Now, one enthusiastic thing that Joe Biden will point to is that among African Americans in the primaries, he was the overwhelming favorite, right? Across the whole country, not just the South, the whole country. So he will point to that, and he can say, I can engender more enthusiasm among Democrats, and than Hillary Clinton did, right? He needs to pump up turnout in Milwaukee. He can't have, and the same in Madison, right? He needs to jump up turnout in these Democratic centers. He can't let the Hillary Clinton strategy of he can't go down the same route of Hillary Clinton and not increase turnout here. So these are two places he has to absolutely increase turnout. Number two, like I said, southwestern Wisconsin. He needs to turn southwestern Wisconsin Democrat. That is a strategy pretty much any Democrat who won Wisconsin has relied on, right? Tony Evers, Jill Karofsky, progressive. She won southwestern Wisconsin handily. So Joe Biden has to win southwestern Wisconsin. Number three, he has to cut down these margins in the WOW counties, and he has to appeal to these suburban voters. And number four, he has to cut down margins in the rest of the rural part of the state. He doesn't have to win Western Wisconsin. He doesn't have to win Green Bay. If he did, that's a sign of a blowout victory, but he doesn't have to do that.